Tonight on Primetime Politics, commitment questioned.
I have absolute confidence in this program, and that's why I'm here implementing it.
When will the Prime Minister fire this minister?
The government launches its Buyback program for assault-style weapons, but with the minister making contradictory comments on a leaked recording, has the program already been undermined? Coming up, we'll speak with the Public Safety Minister. Also,
it's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined.
Donald Trump goes on a tirade at the UN, criticizing climate policy, migration, and the move by countries like Canada to recognize Palestine. What impact will this have on Canada-US trade talks? We'll speak with former UN Ambassador Louise Blais. And
we are moving forward with establishing a new crime of hate.
The Justice Minister on his new hate crimes legislation. This is Primetime Politics. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Serapio. The Carney government is moving ahead with its gun buyback program. Initially introduced by the previous Trudeau government, the program bans assault-style weapons, and it lays out an amnesty period for gun owners to voluntarily surrender their firearms for compensation. But the program, which has encountered problems in the past, is encountering another challenge this time in the form of the Public Safety Minister, caught on tape criticizing the program, calling it political in nature and likely unenforceable. The opposition is now calling for the minister to be fired.
On Monday, a minister says that his program won't work. On Tuesday, he says he's going ahead with the program, a program that will take $750 million away from frontline border and police services to go after Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle, a waste of money that police say they won't implement and that the minister was caught on recording saying they will never implement. He even promised to bail his tenant out of jail if he breaks the law. When will the Prime Minister fire this minister?
Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. If Grandpa Joe is using AR-15s to go hunting, I think we have to have a much more serious conversation about hunting. What we're going forward, Mr. Speaker, are 2,500 prohibited weapons, AR-15s that are killing people around the world, including those in mass casualty incidents in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
Well, joining us now is the Public Safety Minister, Gary Anandasangaree. Minister, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So you as the minister will oversee the implementation of this program, but this also happens just days after the recording was made public. You questioned the program in that recording. You implied it's being pursued for political reasons. So do you or do you not believe in the worthiness of this program?
I absolutely believe in this program, Michael. That's the reason I brought it forward today. As you know, we've launched a pilot for Cape Breton, and we will be expanding it across Canada. This is hugely important. This is a commitment that we made in our platform. We've also been working on this for many, many months to get to that point, to this point. We owe this to survivors. We owe it to Canadians to make sure that many of those prohibited weapons are off our streets.
So you highlight the importance of the program, but can you appreciate that there will be Canadians who question your integrity as minister over this file because of that leaked recording?
Well, let me just address the issue around the leaked recording, Michael. It was a private conversation between two individuals, someone I've known for many years. In it, I explained the program, and of course, there's two areas where I said things in humor that probably didn't come across as such on tape. But I would say that as part of the reason I even had that conversation was to advise that we're going ahead with the program. And I'm absolutely committed to it. And my integrity is intact because I do believe that this is a very important tool, one of many tools that we need to use to ensure that guns are off our streets, guns that can cause lethal damage, guns like the AR-15 that we know have been used for mass casualty events in Canada and many parts of the world.
Now, the Conservative leader, I don't have to tell you, he hit you hard in the House of Commons today. He says you need to be fired over those comments. Do you still have the confidence of the Prime Minister?
I'm here. I announced the program today. I announced it with my colleagues. I announced it along with survivors and groups that have been advocating for many years. I have absolute confidence that this program will move forward, and I will continue to do my job.
Now, okay, let's talk about the program itself right now, because the firearms ban initially came with a 2-year amnesty period. We're now 3 years beyond that original deadline. The current period will end October the 30th. Will that deadline now have to be pushed back, considering you're just bringing in or implementing the program today?
We will be extending the amnesty by 1 year to October of 2026. That's something Minister Fraser will be undertaking. What we did today was to launch the program in Cape Breton. It is a population where there are roughly 3,500 licensed firearm owners. There's roughly 200 prohibited weapons that we believe are in Cape Breton. So the part of the pilot is to ensure that all of our back-end mechanics work, make sure that the online portal is functional, that if there are any glitches, any challenges that we see, we're able to correct them before it rolls out nationally. We're grateful for the work of Cape Breton Police and their personnel, but we're also very thankful to all those who've been involved in advocating for this for many, many years.
Now, what happens, you talk about potential challenges, what happens if one of the challenges are gun owners who do not participate and do not surrender a banned weapon? Will those individuals be arrested?
So first and foremost, Canadians are law-abiding citizens. Those who have licensed firearms are particularly law-abiding. I believe the vast majority of them will comply. They do not want to be in breach of the law. And the expectation is that they will either turn over their weapon, or they can have it deactivated and get compensation for that. This is what I expect will happen. This is, there are roughly 180,000 prohibited weapons in Canada, and we anticipate as part of the program that vast majority, if not all of them, will be recovered or deactivated, whichever people choose to do. Beyond that, if people continue to possess it without these two options, then it is up to the local police of jurisdiction, who I believe, again, will enforce the law. They are, we're a rule of law country where the criminal code is implemented by local authorities, and my expectation is that law enforcement will enforce the law.
That is your expectation. Do you have the resources to actually enforce this ban?
Well, this is the important part is that local police of jurisdiction are the ones that need to do that. They have been for decades implementing the criminal code, whether it's firearms that are not permitted right now. They have been the ones that have been implementing it, and my expectation is they'll continue to do that in a manner that they've always done.
Mm-hmm. Listen, Minister, I appreciate this has not been an easy day for you, given all the questions I've been asked of you, but I do want to end this with one thought from you, because this has been such an important file for your party. The previous government tried to introduce it. As we said, your government is now trying to move forward with it. Important in Liberal terms, but are you afraid that you've now become a distraction from the policy?
Look, when we were going to announce this week, Michael, I expected many distractions. I expected an enormous amount of pushback from particularly conservatives, particularly the gun lobby. That's exactly what happened. They expected us to derail this announcement. They expected us not to move forward, but we're here. We've announced it. We're moving forward. We're going to do the initial pilot in Nova Scotia. We will have it across the country in many weeks from now, in several weeks from now. This is the mandate that we received as a government in April of this year. This is a very tough issue. I realize that many Canadians may not be fully supportive, but what I do expect is compliance, and I expect Canadians who are law-abiding people will.
But are you afraid, Minister, that you've become a distraction?
That they get compensated.
But Minister, are you afraid that you've become a distraction?
I don't believe. I don't believe so. I have been the one that has brought this forward today. I've launched the pilot, and I look forward to completing it.
Gary Anandasangaree, thank you for this. Appreciate the time tonight.
Thank you, Michael.
Well, time now for a look at what else happened in politics today. The Bloc Québécois put forward a motion today. It calls on the government to rescind its challenge to Quebec's secularism law, Bill 21, and to withdraw its request to the Supreme Court to clarify the use of the notwithstanding clause. The Bloc argues both actions attempt to take away constitutional powers from Quebec and the provinces. The motion is slated to be voted tomorrow afternoon. Canada's Privacy Commissioner tabled a report on TikTok today, and in it, Commissioner Philippe Dufresne says the popular app is failing to prevent young children from using the platform and is actively collecting their data. And finally, Prime Minister Mark Carney joined Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the UN today. Together, they spoke at an event for the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children. The two are calling for the return of nearly 20,000 Ukrainian children abducted by Russia. According to Ukraine, since 2014, Russia has forcibly moved Ukrainian children from captured areas into Russian territory, indoctrinated them with propaganda, and are forcing some into conscription.
Russia has repeatedly targeted the most vulnerable groups of children, including orphans, children with disabilities, children from poor families. Russian soldiers have entered classrooms and forcibly rounded up children, taking them to Russian schools and orphanages. To lose a child is every parent's nightmare. For the people of Ukraine, it's a horrifying reality.
Again, that was the Prime Minister at the UN in New York. Well, let's stay with the United Nations right now, because today the U.S. President took to the podium to address the UN General Assembly. Donald Trump delivering a speech that ran nearly an hour long, much longer than the 15 minutes allotted to a world leader. Mr. Trump taking that time to criticize UN climate policy, UN migration policy, and the move to recognize Palestine as a state, which Canada joined yesterday.
Unfortunately, Hamas has repeatedly rejected reasonable offers to make peace. We can't forget October 7th, can we? Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities.
Well, for some reaction to what we just heard from Donald Trump, we are now joined by Louise Blais. From 2017 to 2021, she served as Canada's ambassador and deputy permanent representative to the United Nations. Madame Blais, thank you for the time.
Thank you for having me.
So listen, a lot to dig into when you consider that very long speech we heard today from Donald Trump. And I do want to begin with what we just heard now about Palestine, the U.S. president really echoing what we heard from the Israeli Prime Minister yesterday, that to acknowledge a Palestinian state, Canada and many other countries around the world are essentially rewarding Hamas, a terrorist group responsible for the deaths of thousands, including the October 7 attack. What do you say to that?
Well, that's the main opposition argument, isn't it? And so this was no surprise. We have heard it before. I actually found that the president was soft in his rebuke of the General Assembly. We have to remember that the day before, there was really one leader after the other recognizing the state of Palestine and accusing Israel of many infringement on international law and humanitarian law. So I was expecting a stronger tone today from the president than we actually heard on this issue. He seemed to say that, obviously this was misguided, but at the same time, and he outlined the fact that the fighting does have to stop and lives have to be saved. But his way to that conclusion is different than what the majority of member states believe.
Different, as you say, but how difficult might it be for Canada to be really offside with the United States on a key foreign policy issue for them, the Middle East, when we right now are going back and forth on the issue of trade?
Right. Well, we're in good company, as we say in diplomatic language. We're not alone. Took that step in addition to the 140 some that long ago. So that is helpful. But on the other hand, it's the matter in which we have done it. And then yesterday really doesn't change very much for that consequence, because what we did back in the summer is we made this announcement of our intention to recognize the state of Palestine just a day before the deadline that was in place in August. And as a surprise to the Americans, I think that probably we should have given them a heads up, told them that we were going to this direction, because historically, Canada was aligned with the Americans and Israel on issues at the UN. So this is a departure for Canada, a stronger departure than even for France. So in that sense, probably when your biggest, largest trading partner, your biggest ally in security, you're going to go in a different direction, then probably a conversation to just explain why in advance would have been the way to go. But that was, and it changes.
Sorry to interrupt, Madame Blais, but do you think that will have a negative impact then, the fact that we did not give them more advance warning?
I think it already has. I think it speaks to the trust, the relationship. I was in D.C. just 2 weeks ago, and I heard it from many Republicans that there's this sense that we're two ships passing in the night, that we're not speaking the same language, and that we haven't succeeded in establishing the kind of relationship with the administration that could lead to a deal. And we heard, I know I'm criticized for saying this often, but we heard the president say it today, and that's just a fact. And we know he said he doesn't like to do business with people that he doesn't get along with. He said it in his speech. So for him, it's personal. You've got to build rapport. And from there, well, you do negotiate and try to get something out of it. That comes first with Donald Trump. And we get the sense that we're just not there yet.
Yeah, not there yet, as you say. And then there are the two other issues that came up during Donald Trump's speech. One having to do with the environment, criticizing, green efforts to address climate change. He also addressed migration efforts, refugee efforts. Are those potential sticking points with the U.S. if Canada continues on its path? Because, it is still very much, at least on the books, different from what the United States is advocating.
Well, you're actually quite right to ask the question. And I think of all the topics that were raised today, I think the one on energy is the one that I think really matters to Canada. Obviously, the United States is charting a different path. So far, we'll have to wait and see with this government what will be in the budget, what the other big projects will be. But clearly, Donald Trump today talked about the green scam and really derided renewable energies as expensive and inefficient and not generating enough power to really power the energy of the economy of tomorrow. So we'll have to wait and see. Canada is a superpower. The Prime Minister says so, and we clearly are. But are we really fulfilling the true potential of that superpower ability if we have hampered ourselves as much as we have in the past 10 years? So we're seeing a change. We're seeing some alignment, but we'll have to wait and see. But that's definitely on critical minerals, and those sectors it's definitely fertile ground for coming to common ground with the United States.
Mm-hmm. So as you say, it's a wait and see as we continue to follow the negotiations back and forth. But before we leave the UN altogether, Madame Blais, I do also want to talk about the writ large, the criticisms that Donald Trump had for the organization, because clearly we've seen the United States under his administration move further away from the UN, have been far more critical of the UN. Today we heard Donald Trump essentially chastising them for not preventing wars around the world. What does this mean for multilateral efforts and institutions like the United Nations? Are they in trouble?
Well, in a way, what he said today was a relief to me vis-a-vis what he could have said. He could have pulled the United States out. He could have said other things. He's raising something that is shared around the world. Why is it that the UN has not been able to stop and prevent some of these regional conflicts? you're seeing. Well, part of the reasons it's not the UN, it's the member states. It's the Security Council, which is paralyzed, and the US has been part of the problem, using its veto when it serves its own purpose. It's not the only country who've done that. Obviously, Russia has done that in the context of its invasion of Ukraine. So it's a bit unfair to criticize the UN as an organization when really the fault really should be laid at the feet of the member states, particularly the P5.
Louise Blais, as I say, always appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, you heard Madame Blais and I reference the U.S. President and Donald Trump's comments on climate and migration. Take a listen to a bit of what was shared at the General Assembly of the UN today.
All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Well, back here at home last Friday, the Justice Minister introduced new hate crime legislation, 4 new criminal code offenses that make it illegal to promote hatred against a particular group, illegal to use symbols of hate like the swastika, while also aiming to prevent intimidation and obstruction at religious institutions. Well, with more, we are now joined by the Minister of Justice, Sean Fraser. Minister, thank you for the time.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Listen, the criminal code, I don't have to tell you, already contains several laws pertaining to hate and propaganda. So why the need to layer on more laws here?
Look, that's an excellent point, and I think it's essential for people to understand that the new offenses that we've created do address distinct kinds of harm. For example, we have seen the challenges with different communities of faith who are being intimidated or obstructed from practicing their faith and for celebrating their identity when it comes to attending at religious institutions, at community centers, at schools, designed for identifiable groups in this country. But when we actually communicate, or rather consulted with communities who were impacted by hate across the country, with a troubling rise in hate crimes we've seen, we took their advice and said, when they said that they're impacted by hate throughout their communities, and when there is an assault committed against a person on the basis of the color of their skin, when there is a robbery committed against a person on the basis of their country of origin, or where there is harassment conducted against someone on the basis of their sexual orientation, the motivation for those hate crimes doesn't just impact the individual victim. It impacts the community more broadly, and the harm reverberates through the entirety of that community. We wanted to ensure that we advanced new offenses that will add additional protections, not just for the individuals who have been victimized by hate crimes, but for communities who feel the ripple effect in their daily lives, no matter where they find themselves in Canada.
Still, though, you mentioned religious communities, and there's been mixed reaction to what you're proposing. For example, B'nai B'rith, they support what's been announced. The National Council of Canadian Muslims, they're expressing concern about how police might apply the law, concern about where people will be able to demonstrate. What do you say to that?
Look, I think these are important questions, and we went to significant lengths to ensure that we are targeting social harm and criminal behavior, while at the same time absolutely protecting the right of Canadians to congregate, to freely express themselves. In fact, the legislation specifically exempts any conduct that would amount to gathering for the purpose of sharing information, for participating in a peaceful protest. We will have work to do alongside our provincial counterparts to ensure that there's training in place so these laws will be applied in a way that is fair and reasonable in the circumstances by law enforcement on the ground. But when I see the shocking rise in hate crimes that have taken place in recent years in this country, not taking action would be completely unacceptable. We made a decision to make good on our campaign commitments, targeting access to religious institutions, but at the same time advancing new offenses that we heard loud and clear from communities communities were required in order to protect them against hate in all circumstances. Over the course of the parliamentary study of this issue, should it be supported in the House and reach the committee stage, we're going to have the opportunity to benefit from the advice of additional experts who will give their testimony to either support or propose amendments to the legislation, and that exercise hopefully will produce a stronger piece of legislation over the course of that process.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is the first crime bill that you introduced as Justice Minister, and I think there are some that might scratch their heads because bail has been such a big issue. In fact, that was the first opposition day from the Conservatives, introducing their own bail reform, if you will. Why prioritize these new hate laws rather than moving on bail, since crime is right now, according to pollsters, the #1 concern amongst Canadians?
Yeah, look, I can tell you over the course of the summer, the vast majority of my time was spent consulting with law enforcement, with provincial counterparts, with national stakeholder organizations and professionals who work within the criminal justice system to identify the right solutions, specifically on bail reform and sentencing in the criminal code. We do have the opportunity over the course of this fall to continue those conversations, very recently continuing to receive feedback from provincial governments. We do have in mid-October a congregation of federal, provincial and territorial partners with my counterparts from every province and territory represented to discuss what the next stage of criminal justice reform ought to look like. I wanted to benefit from those conversations to ensure that the laws we put in place are the right laws, not for the next few weeks, but for the next generation in this country. We have a serious package of reforms coming that's going to strengthen the bail system and ensure that there are more serious penalties where we have serious crimes taking place in this country. It also is going to create an opportunity for us to highlight the laws that need to be changed to build stronger and safer communities, and at the same time highlight for Canadians the role of provincial governments when it comes to administering the justice system on the ground and the policing requirements to ensure we're working together to create safe communities for everyone in this country.
So what's the timeline Canadians can expect to have this package shared with them?
You should expect in the month of October that we will be tabling legislation dealing with bail and sentencing.
Okay, so just ahead or just after the meeting with your provincial counterparts?
Look, some of these conversations will depend upon the nature of the feedback that we receive from the provinces and obviously the discretion of the House Leader. But my current anticipation, it will be slightly after we have an opportunity to meet with our provincial counterparts in Alberta coming up in just a few weeks.
Okay. In the meantime, this hate and propaganda package, it needs to be passed. Who will support your government on this? Do you have an idea right at this point?
Look, I don't speak for other parties. I can only speak for the government. We're aiming not necessarily to turn this into a political exercise where we change the perspective of doing what's right in order to convince another party to support us. We start with saying we're going to do what we believe is right and invite them to provide feedback to the extent that they think it can be improved. My sense is, given the reaction from different parts of the country and given the relatively muted response from opposition parties in the House of Commons on this piece of legislation, is that it will attract the support of multiple parties in the House, but I will leave it to them to decide their voting position. In the meantime, we'll focus on advancing reforms that I believe will make Canada a safer country.
Minister Sean Fraser, thank you for this. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, pleasure as always. Thanks for having me.
And that is Primetime Politics for this Tuesday evening. I'm Michael Serapio. For everyone here at CPAC, thank you for watching. Primetime Politics is back tomorrow evening. Until then, take care.